Welcome everyone to another episode of Price Targets with your host Bitcoin Jack. I hope you've all had a great weekend. I did. I was out ice skating, as I've done a lot of times last week, and I was also with my brother-in-law who bought his first Bitcoin. So we're going to be talking about how I think the herd is here / coming and how to deal with that in the weeks ahead. But first, I want your attention for ECOS. They're sponsoring this content. Thank you, ECOS, for sponsoring. They're a fully regulatory compliant exchange. They have futures, they have spot, they have fiat on-ramps, off-ramps. So make sure to check them out. There's a link in the description below and in the watermark. Thank you, ECOS. And yeah, sign up, look, and see if you like it. Bitcoin. I just said that my brother-in-law got into Bitcoin. I'm seeing a lot of attention coming towards Bitcoin, and I'm also seeing a lot of people saying that's a top signal. And I do agree to a certain extent that, you know, it's kind of scary to see all these people coming in, and it makes you wonder whether we've topped out or not. When I look at the Bitcoin chart, I think it's normal at this point that we're getting into the media attention phase. Tesla has been buying, Michael Saylor has been pushing the boat. So there's a lot of interest going into Bitcoin right now. A lot of people are starting to pay attention. We're closing in on $1 trillion market cap for Bitcoin. We already closed in on $1 trillion market cap for crypto in general. So it's not something that can be ignored any longer. And what we do know is that if we look at spot volumes, we've seen that a lot of volume has been traded in Jan, like almost record volumes. This indicator is not exact by definition. It's an estimate of how much Bitcoin has been traded because it uses some on-chain metrics, off-chain metrics, exchange metrics, and tries to come up with the most likely amount of Bitcoin being traded. But there's just been a lot of Bitcoin traded in Jan, and we're seeing continuation of that range. So as long as we stay above that range and we see continuation, that's just a very bullish sign. It kind of makes me think that we're entering this final parabolic phase of Bitcoin, and this final parabolic phase of Bitcoin is going to get increasingly difficult for people to trade because it's going to be super steep. There's going to be steep pumps and steep corrections, and you know, it's going to be very hard to hold on to your position, and it's also very easy to think that we've topped out time after time again. So I want to just give some attention to that during this video. If we look at the daily zoomed out, this is pretty much the month of Jan, this area right here. And we've seen in the past, this is Coinbase, maybe I need to go to a different chart, but these kind of like large consolidations that see a lot of volume on a sell-off and just in general, let's see, sorry about that. Continuation of those is huge. Like, let's see if I can get a weekly here. Need some time to load. We can study these kind of like bigger consolidation pullback ranges, and they boom. You see, like here, you always have to look at volume in a relative way to the rest of the run. So you can see that volume kept going up pretty much until the top was in, and then volume died down, right? That's kind of how you measure the strength of a trend. You want to see volume go up, and at some point you know, it's the end, right? You know, especially if the top is on lower volume. So right here, this was you can't use that to say the top is in, but what you can know is that as long as volume grows on a building trend, it's a solid trend, and then at some point it's going to fail increasing. So let me see if I can zoom in and explain a bit more explicitly what I'm trying to convey here. Okay, so there's this rally into this point right here. Then there's like some continuation here, but it's on lower volume, right? So we see a sell-off. So what we want to see after that on continuation is we want to see volume grow past the previous levels. And if that's on a sell-off, that's fine. You know, like right here, the volume is higher on this sell-off, and then we see continuation. That's a bullish sign. Right here, it's still, you know, better than most of the bull run, which is bullish. And then here it goes higher and higher. So, you know, there's strength in the trend. Once that starts to drop, it becomes, you know, tricky, and especially if you don't see continuation. So back then, you know, if you would have seen continuation after this, it would have been relatively bullish, maybe super bullish. So growing volume on a trend is a good thing. You know, right here you saw lower volume than here, so eventually there's going to be a pullback, which happened right here, which was on high volume. So you got to be careful when you see this, but once you see it close above it, it's very likely that the trend will continue. So here there's low volume, sell off on high volume. If price would have gone, you know, above this level, that would have been super bullish, but it didn't. Let's see if we can zoom into 2013. Right, like there was volume right here, which was higher than the volume right here. Building, and then boom, you know, high volume sell off, probably the end of the run. Same here. You see volume building, and then at some point, volume is starting to drop off, which is something that should worry you. So once we start looking at this, you see that we had building volume, and now we have continuation on lower volume. So this is just going to continue probably until we see a bigger sell-off again. But the fact that volume has been building, and now there was a high volume top right here, and we broke through it, makes me bullish to at least, you know, let's see, grab this right here to at least double the range, right? Maybe even triple the range. That take thirds, you see, and divide this up in 3 parts, something like that. So there's a clear range here, there's a bit of a range here, there's a bit of a range here. So generally, high time frame, I'm exceptionally bullish on Bitcoin. The question is, how do we trade it here? Now I think the herd is coming, and they will get challenged. Nothing is going to go up straight. But my main point is, don't bet against the raging crowd. We know that if we start looking into what happened in Bitcoin inside this consolidation right here, we know that a lot of high profile players have been buying. Tesla bought in this range, probably around 33, 34k, maybe slightly lower. Guggenheim bought in this range. So they're not, you know, it's in their interest now to start operating the market to assure their profits. And they will be doing so by buying maybe even more, but mainly just by pushing the narrative outwards to find someone else to pay more for what they bought. And that's a lot of money coming in. That's billions and billions and billions. And what we know right now is that on average, every dollar invested in Bitcoin can move the Bitcoin market cap by $3 to $4. And that's a rising number as we go more and more parabolic. So this parabola is probably going to continue from here. Arguably it broke here, but now it just made a new high. So high time frame, really bullish. Let's look at the lower time frames. So last week we talked about the little range between the orange boxes, if you remember. And I was cautious, and I mean, I think I outlined demand to be here, and I didn't like go full idiotic ape on it. Like, I was conservative. I even hedged some at like 45k, 45.1k, and got stopped out eventually above red here. And market rallied, showed that demand was strong enough to actually gain the resistances, which it did. And then it had this like super annoying kind of like bleeding consolidation, which we break out of now as well. So now the question is, where do we go from here? And I think we're bullish. Like, I don't think that the market is gonna be selling off right now, even though it might look like it to a lot of people. A lot of people are seeing like this kind of like rising wedge. I don't think it's a rising wedge. I think the corrective structure is either this entire thing and then this is the continuation. So that means this is just going to push higher, or it's entirely a completely different structure, which is kind of complicated, I guess, and uncommon to see. But that would mean that this is kind of the start of the corrective structure, and that is like A, B, C, D, E, and it's kind of like an ascending triangle, I guess, which is being retested right now. If we look at the daily, we look at the daily, or yeah, the hourly is fine. Well, right now we're retesting this high, the high of, or I think most likely start of the corrective structure. So that means that if price can hold here between like 47.5 to, I think maybe even like the current price where we're at like 38.2, 38, 48.2, sorry, my bad. Then I think we're gonna pop, and you know, this is all fair game. Like, this is the $1 trillion market cap, more or less. Like, and then 60, 61 is the, you know, adding this range on top of itself on a logarithmic scale, which I think is fair to do in a parabolic market. And then the question is, like, where do we go? Do we keep on going? Do we get wrecked? I don't think the market is gonna come back down here, but this is your main support, 42k. And we had the inefficiency right here, but I think if we continue, I don't think we're gonna like fill it anymore. If the market can manage to pop up to 60k, either it's just gonna continue on a berserk rally, but I think it's far more likely to get a reaction of 54, 55, back to like 47, 48, and then go to 60, and then see, I don't know, a pretty sharp, steep 30% correction. So I'm not going to bet short here. But what I am going to do is shave off some of my leverage positions, which are pretty expensive right now. The funding is really high. It's a bummer, but it's part of the game. You just have to pay it. If you don't like it, don't leverage straight. But if the market is going to continue in volatile ways, it's worth paying the funding. The market just outruns the funding. Right now, it's arguably, the market needs to start pushing for that to be the case. So if it's going to take like more than 2 days, 3 days for the market to pop here, doesn't look too well, but I think it's going to happen rather quickly. Like if we look at, if this is an A, B, C, D, E, whatever, like rising, ascending triangle, it should pop really quickly. If it's a wedge, which I mean it's possible, it would be a leading diagonal. So maybe then we come down here and then pop. And if it's just a simple A, B, C structure, then this is just the first leg of the third wave. So there's a couple of ways to look at it, and you're never sure about anything. There's no guarantees, but it does look to me that we're going to see continuation, and it does look to me that we're going to see a little bit of a euphoric state in the market as we push for 54, 55. Lots of media attention because Bitcoin 1 trillion market cap. Great. Oh, sorry, this is not 54. This is 54. So it's probably going to shoot past it a little bit, come back down, fuck around a little bit. Maybe it just shoots straight to 60. I don't know. But I'm just going to take profits up until here and then reevaluate. There's no need to gamble on any top for now. I think this market can easily go past 100K in the next couple of weeks, months. But with like 30% corrections in between, 40% corrections. So let's recap. Don't bet against a raging crown that's just arriving, and be conservative in taking profits. So you just have your TPs. There will be dips. You will be able to scale in lower, and if not, that's fine. Like especially if you're trading leverage, you're making BTC on top of your BTC. You just got to be grateful that you're fucking getting it. Sorry for my language. And it's just going to go higher and deeper than you think. It's always the case. You're not going to time tops and bottoms. It's just, it's going to be very difficult. And the one thing I wouldn't do, and I've already said this, but I'm just going to repeat it, shorting this market at size / high risk outside of scalping or hedging to small or, like medium amounts of USD is probably not a really great idea. The odds are really against you, and it's very simple. But if you manage to take profits every 10%, every 20%, this market goes up, the odds for you to catch a 20 to 40% dip later are just increasing. So if the market goes up 10, 20, 30, 40%, and you take profit, there's going to be odds for you to buy back lower or at the same price, but after a large correction, which helps your risk to reward a lot and just takes off a lot of risk. And I don't know how high this can go before a major pullback. Like nobody knows 100%. But what we can look at is the volume, is the funding. But the funding can go crazy like for a long time, as long as the market keeps moving, just because there's a lot of demand. So it's not just sentiment, but the fact that, if there's a high demand for Bitcoin, obviously there's going to be high interest rates on Bitcoin. It's simple as that. So as long as the market keeps moving, people are not going to get squeezed, and then out of nowhere, there will be a massive, massive pullback. So take profit, make sure you don't get liquidated. That's, objective 1. Objective 2 is make sure that, you have BTC on the sidelines to take profit. This has been a super long 20-minute video, and I feel like I've only talked about Bitcoin, and the reason why is I'm unsure about alts. I've seen like dinosaur coins like Vertcoin pump 100% today. It just makes me feel as if Bitcoin is ready to pop. So there's like this quote unquote rising wedge that everyone's seeing. I think it's just gonna pop, and if rising wedges, which I don't think it is, but that's how the majority of the market looks at it, pop to the upside, there's going to be a lot of people who bet short and are wrong, re-entering the market, just pushing it, moving it higher. And it just makes me wary on where altcoins go. If Bitcoin is going to be super volatile, it's probably going to hurt some of the alts, and a lot of alts have been running. So I've taken profits even on LTC, on ETH, whatever I had still left, WRX, BNB, everything's gone. And if the market can show me that it wants to continue on alts versus Bitcoin, fine. I'll get back in. But I've taken profits, managed my risk, thanked the market for being nice to me, and hopefully, it's not a bad thing. Like if the market does correct on altcoins versus BTC, we'll get to buy the dip and ride it again. And I'm too scared to short them either. So just let them be. And the chances on Bitcoin volatility right now, it's just insane. Like, and if it is a rising wedge, by the way, then it's just gonna shit the bed probably very hard. And I'm not sure you want to be in alts at that moment either. So one way or another, this structure, whatever you think it is, whatever I think it is, I think it's very dangerous to not assume volatility, and generally Bitcoin volatility is just not good for alts. So one way or the other, I'm going to stay out of alts for now, and my bet is that Bitcoin pushes higher, 54, 60, maybe even higher. I don't know. Take profit and make sure you don't get liquidated. So I'm going to catch you on Wednesday. Hope you had a great weekend, and see you soon.